What is going on, y'all? Fate here. Welcome back to the channel, and today I'm here to bring you guys my Tears of the Kingdom first impressions. So this game is awesome. It's incredible. But first and foremost, I do want to say any gameplay shown here will be from within the first couple hours of the game, and there will be no story spoilers. There may be some slight things that I talk about regarding the gameplay or certain features within the game. So if you don't want to get spoiled on that, do be careful there when watching this video. But there will be zero story spoilers. So I think that is all I need to preface it with. So first of all, I'm going to talk about the story in very vague terms. So the story, how the game is set up, is much more active than Breath of the Wild ever was. And I think that that is obviously really good, and it's going to help ease people into this game, especially for those of you that didn't like Breath of the Wild, right? So that's really important, I think, to mention. And it was really awesome. It was really fucking good. So, yeah, there's that. Next up, I guess we should just hop straight into the new abilities. And honestly, I think they're all really good and really impactful abilities. So, you'll probably see me use it here pretty soon. Yeah, right here. Ultra Hand. And you're going to see me mess around here for a minute and not fucking figure it out. But Ultra Hand is really, really cool. Super fun to mess around with. My only complaint is it feels like sort of the batteries you have for the for the battery-powered parts. The batteries you have really do not last long at the start of the game, and it is pretty frustrating when I just want to do crazy shit. And that's honestly my only complaint. I think Ultra Hand is really cool and provides really unique puzzles and stuff like that. So, yeah, definitely think that is a great addition to the game. Next up, I think, is Fuse, and Fuse is interesting. It's interesting. I think it improves the combat a little bit. It's a little bit more fun, or not just the combat, but the reward system in general, because all the monster parts and things like that you pick up, you can actually do things with. So overall, I think it's definitely a good thing for sure. I think Fuse is really good. It was slightly it's slightly underwhelming when it just think about it in terms of affecting the combat, but I think it is really good in terms of fixing the reward system for doing combat. So I think that is also a really great addition. And then you have Recall and Ascend. Neither one of those are used quite as frequently as the other two, but I think they're both really fun. And you can also do some crazy things, both of them, in terms of like breaking the game. So yeah, it's just really cool. I think all the new abilities are really awesome. So yeah, I guess in general terms, I guess that's the first thing that I should talk about, or those things. You see me drop the the whole thing that I just spent like 5 minutes making, but that was funny. Next, next thing I'm going to talk about is the Great Plateau equivalent, the Great Sky Island, which you can see me on now. I think is really, really good. And I think something that will really help people who didn't like how open Breath of the Wild was is that this island felt so much more linear than the Great Plateau, or really at any point in Breath of the Wild. It really actually felt like you were on a guided path, which I felt like is really, it was really good and huge. To an extent, I was like, man, I really just want to like kind of get along with the game, right? But I definitely got super lost here, by the way. But I think it was really cool to see it sort of be like that, as linear as it was. Not that it was like incredibly linear or anything, but I think it's fair to say it was probably like it felt like it was the most guided point for Tears of the King or for Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom that I played thus far. So that was really interesting. And to give you like a direct comparison with how it felt, because how it felt to me was like an upgraded version of what, and I'm specifically talking about the Great Sky Island here, by the way. The Great Sky Island felt like a direct like upgrade or evolution of what the Skyward Sword overworld was kind of like. Because if you've played Skyward Sword, you know that the overworld was very linear, and it's obviously nowhere near that linear. It's actually quite open in comparison. There's actually not a comparison at all there when it comes to how linear they are to each other. But it felt like that to me, especially looking back on it, because of how puzzle solving is integrated into the overworld and integrated into traversal. Because in Skyward Sword, it kind of feels like a lot like you're just always in a dungeon, and Tears of the Kingdom doesn't quite feel like that. They definitely toned it back, or I say Tears of the Kingdom specifically mean the Great Sky Island. But there is still puzzle solving to traverse in the Great Sky Island, which actually I thought was pretty cool. And despite that being one of my least favorite parts about Skyward Sword is how the overworld works. So anyways, that long-winded comparison to Skyward Sword out of the way, and the Great Sky Island overworld comparison out of the way. What else do I think about it? Let me talk a little bit more about the Great Sky Island, though. It did feel extremely similar to the Great Plateau, just in terms of how the story was set up and stuff. And I can't even fault them for that, because obviously it's going to be similar to the Great Plateau. They definitely really struck gold with the Great Plateau, so I can't fault them at all for kind of setting it up similarly, even though they kind of helped railroad you a little bit more. Next. Let's see. What else am I going to talk about? I talked about story, the abilities, and the traversal in the Great Sky Island. So I guess we need to get to sort of the next parts of the game, which is the rest of Hyrule. So here's what I'm actually going to talk about first. And I guess slight, I mean, the most minor spoilers if you don't want to, like, know absolutely anything. But there are shrines back in this game, and they feel pretty different to me than how the shrines in Breath of the Wild felt, because of how difficult they are. Some of the puzzles I have truly sat there for 20 plus minutes, that's probably an exaggeration, but for over 10 minutes, just like not knowing what to do. And there was even one where I was like I truly was stumped, had to look it up. Truly, it was very difficult, which is great, by the way. And so the shrines definitely a level up, I think. Even though they can maybe be a little bit more frustrating, I think it's definitely a level up. And in terms of difficulty, mentioning difficulty, I feel like the enemies, or just this game in general, much harder, in my opinion. I definitely died a few times. Now, admittedly, I'm probably pushing it, going into places where maybe I should not. But also, look at this shit, dude. Ultra Hand is so cool. And this is like such a primitive use of it. But yeah, mentioning difficulty, I just fell off. That was just really funny. The enemies just really do a lot of damage, and it's really good. And they mob you more than Breath of the Wild ever did. So that, yeah, they really took the training wheels off in this game, which I think is great. Next, let's just talk about the scale. The scale of this game, incredible, insane. If you thought Breath of the Wild was huge, just take that and multiply it by like 5, This game is crazy. Just the height that you can see from being up in the sky to seeing all the way to the ground level is insane. It's crazy. So yeah, that that is just the scale is really impressive, for sure. Now, being almost 9 hours in the game, I still have yet to go to the first dungeon, just because I'm exploring so much. But I'm very certain that there are dungeons, and I mean, they even came out directly and said it before the game came out, which was kind of funny. But yeah, um, I have yet to make it to the first dungeon, so I can't really comment on that yet. But I think for people wanting a more traditional Zelda, I don't know if this is gonna completely tide you over, but I think it does a lot more in that department than Breath of the Wild ever did or tried to do for you guys. So I think that's really cool to mention for you. Just because the story I think is definitely improved, and well, I don't know if it's improved because I think Breath of the Wild has a really underrated story, but the way the story is presented, I think, is definitely improved for those of you that want a more of all story, right? So there's that. Um, let's see. Talked about shrines. I think I talked about most of everything that I want to talk about that is like really spoiler free. But I will go and tell you guys one thing. Big spoiler warning here, because I think getting this on your own, especially if you've been super attentive, like if you have not been super attentive to the trailers, you definitely wanna get out now, for sure. Um, because this is going to be a really huge spoiler for those of you that haven't. So let's talk about the underground, bro. It is massive, completely massive, and I have yet to scratch the surface of it. But I haven't run into like a wall where you can't keep going in a direction yet, which I think is insane. That is nuts, bro. That is completely nuts. Um, yeah, yeah. The game is like I said. The scale is absolutely incredible. Um, and the underground absolutely incredible. Very very difficult, very difficult. I died many a times there already, um, which is really good. Like I said, difficulty is a good thing for the most part in my book. There's a point where it's like more frustrating than difficult, but yeah, I think it's definitely a plus. So the underground is really really nuts. I love it and want to go keep exploring it right now. Um, but one thing to touch on, I guess, regarding that as well is I feel like getting to the Sky Islands is very difficult. Um, once you get back to Hyrule, I feel like it's extremely difficult to get to other Sky Islands, um, which is is fine. I think it probably should be difficult to get all the way in the fucking sky, right? But um, I just thought it was important to mention that for the most part. I think it definitely is pretty difficult to get up there. So, especially with like your super low battery, yada yada yada. But I think that's everything that I have to mention so far. The game has really um, surpassed even surpassed the lofty expectations that I have for it. So, um, I just want to keep playing it and get you guys more videos.